The podcast is Loathsome Things. The topic is horror movies. The hosts are Josh, that's me, and John, that's him. John, how are you doing today?
I'm doing A-OK.
All thumbs.
I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
I'm doing all right. Yeah.
It's good.
You doing okay yourself, you said?
I'm doing good. I'm enjoying this. So today we're watching one Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. A famous British film. No, it's not, is it?
Jesus Christ. Another stellar opening. We're watching a fine British film, we are.
Just sipping on it like tea, ain't it?
Yeah.
Here we is.
It's a one Mr. Stanley Kubrick, it is.
Oh, he's a regular old mudlark.
I appear to have made some red rum in me trousers. I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about.
Wow, I red rummed myself. Yes, indeed. It is none other than Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. A famous 1980 film. I don't know, just keep doing it. It's bad.
Why not?
Let's talk about it. It sounds like you're doing fine. I'm doing fine. We came here to talk about it. Let's talk about it. What do you have to say, John?
One of my favorite movies of all time.
Nice.
I fucking love this movie. I've seen it 50 times. I don't know. They even had a special theatrical release that came out a few years ago, 5-6 years ago. And I went and saw that, so I got to see it in the theater, which was really cool.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I mean, it came out when I was really young. I was like, it was middle school. I remember when it came out, everybody was talking about it. Of course, everybody was scared to see it. But I don't even remember the first time I saw it, but this has always been one of my favorite movies. It's a strange one. I mean, there's really nothing like it.
It's peculiar.
The only thing you can compare it to is other Stanley Kubrick films. I mean, it's... and as far as horror goes, it's almost like it's a one-film subgenre of horror. I don't know. It's just Kubrick horror. It's like it doesn't fit with anything else. Yeah, it's a ghost story, or yeah, it's Stephen King or whatever, but it just, I mean, I understand why King didn't like it. It's not the same story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And yeah. That's the whole thing. So yeah. King didn't like it. So Stanley Kubrick. Let's talk about Stanley Kubrick.
Yeah.
Longtime director before he made this. He directed Paths of Glory, Spartacus, Lolita, Doctor Strangelove. He also 2001: A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange, A Full Metal Jacket, a real piece of shit, some might say.
Yeah. He did Eyes Wide Shut. Shies Wide Up. And
yeah. In which I believe this film features prominently. Is that correct?
In Eyes Wide Shut?
Yeah, like doesn't Tom Cruise go to the movie theater and watch this movie Eyes Wide Shut?
I do not remember that. I do know that the theme music, that at the beginning of the movie, is also played in Clockwork Orange. He does weird shit. He likes to do weird shit like that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't remember that about Eyes Wide Shut, but it's possible. It's been a while since I've seen that one. Oh, he made Barry Lyndon too, which is fucking great movie.
Is it? I've never seen it. It looks so boring.
It's really long, but it's just so good. It's just, I fucking love Stanley Kubrick, even though I just watched a documentary, not even a documentary, it was just like some footage that I think his wife shot about, or during the making of The Shining, and there's like a scene where, I'm sure it's infamous, but it's the first time I've ever seen it, where he's like yelling at Shelley Duvall because she missed a cue, but they have like the snow machine, which is basically this thing held up by a crane, and it's so loud nobody can hear anything. So he has to give orders to a guy with a walkie-talkie, and then that guy radios into the Overlook Hotel, and she's supposed to come running out there, but she missed her cue because nobody can hear anything. So he's like yelling at her. It's just like, dude, fucking chill out. There's a bit where she's pulling hair out. She's like, look, chunks of hair, Stanley, chunks of hair are coming out. And he's like, chunks? Like, he's making fun of her choice of words. It's like, oh my God, dude, you are such a dick.
The way that he treated Shelley Duvall in the filming of this movie is just an atrocity, and he should not have been forgiven for it. Like, you even get, like, Jack Nicholson saying that he's never seen any actor ever work as hard as Shelley Duvall worked in this movie. And it's just tragic the way that he treated her, like, because he was constantly telling her that she was doing a bad job. His point was to break her self-confidence down to zero, to the point that he even had the rest of the cast and crew, like, they were directed to never be nice to her.
It reminds me of Coppola, the way he treated Martin Sheen in that, specifically in that scene in Apocalypse Now where he's drunk in the hotel room before he goes off to find Colonel Kurtz. And he's literally drunk in the scene. He intentionally got drunk for the scene and wanted to let all of his emotions out because he was apparently in the process of a divorce or something like that. So there's some footage you can see out online of Coppola Coppola basically giving Sheen a hard time to try to get an emotional response. He's like, think about your kids. Think about how much you miss your kids. How much do you miss your kids right now? He's just like,
oh God.
He gets so mad he punches a mirror and fucks his hand up, and they leave that in the movie. So he's like sitting there with his hand bleeding. He really did that. It's like, that's that kind of stuff is not so cool anymore.
Yeah, this is from the same era of movies where it was maybe thought a cool idea to actually sexually assault an actress with a stick of butter in order to get the reality of the shot in the film. So if like
such
that's
a
where
fine
Kubrick's
film it
from.
is.
Jesus.
All that for The Last Tango in Paris.
Jesus Christ. What a nightmare.
Mm.
So yeah, this was Stanley Kubrick, like, at his apex too. Like, this is when, like, in the middle of every single film he was coming out with was like a banger and like nothing else, and like not like any of the other ones. Like, this was a time where it was very exciting to be a Stanley Kubrick fan, and wow, it really did a number on some things. I mean, it definitely catapulted Jack Nicholson into, like, ultra fame, and it kind of put the foot down on the rest of Shelley Duvall's career, because it seems like after this, she just didn't have it in her to be a major actress anymore, and I can't imagine why.
I think, one of the things they were exploiting in her was her willingness to really put herself out there. I mean, other actors may have that willingness as well, but there's a vulnerability to her that we now understand was probably in large part due to severe mental illness that obviously blossomed as she got older. But, this is a highly sensitive woman, obviously, even back then. And, they could have gotten just as good a performance out of her without having to abuse her. And if they couldn't, well, then maybe they should have got somebody else. I mean, because that's just terrible.
Yeah. Super fucked up Stanley Kubrick. I'm glad you're dead.
I love Stanley Kubrick as far as being an artist. I love what he's made. I really appreciate that. But every time I see footage of him, I'm like choking back the urge to just be like, okay, fuck this guy. I don't want to even think about this guy anymore.
I know. Such a piece of shit.
God, man. But anyways, yeah.
Let's see. Danny Lloyd is here as Danny Torrance. He would go on to play a young G. Gordon Liddy in Will, the autobiography of G. Gordon Liddy, and also played a spectator in Dr. Sleep. And those are the only other movie credits other than this one.
Didn't he become a biologist or something like that? I forget.
That'd be neat. I don't know. I just got stuck on G. Gordon Liddy, and I was like, wow, okay.
I know, that's enough. I always thought G. Gordon Liddy looked like Dabney Coleman, and what a great version of G. Gordon Liddy on screen that would have been.
Nice.
I'm a goddamn good-looking man.
I couldn't get over how much Shelley Duvall reminded me of Mia Goth. I was like, oh man, if you were gonna make a like redo this and try to make it somewhat like this, like, Mia Goth would make a fantastic Wendy Torrance.
She would, but I would be more scared of her than Jack.
Oh yeah. Oh, that would be a great table turn if it was Wendy that was the axie one. Yes.
Oh, that would be amazing. And Jack is a complete milquetoast.
Oh my God, Ty West's The Shining. Let's do that.
Oh shit. And then Danny is a little girl, and just have all the genders flipped in the entire movie.
All of them, yes.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
And of course, we have Scatman Crothers as Dick Halloran.
Scatman. Oh Lord.
He is famously the voice of Meadowlark Lemon from the 1970s cartoon Harlem Globetrotters, as well as he was in the Harlem Globetrotters on Gilligan's Island, made-for-TV movie.
Wow.
And he was Jazz in the Autobot Jazz in the Transformers cartoons.
Yes, famously so.
Yeah. I picked only the good credits.
The Scatman.
Yeah.
I always love Scatman Crothers.
Oh, he's great. He brought a special presence and a special bedroom to this movie.
Oh my God, it's so good.
He's just hanging out with those paintings on the wall.
That's so fucking good. I remember when I saw that, I was like, oh, that is dark. Like, that is a whole world I don't know anything about. Because I was so young. It was like, whoa. Yeah. It was like peering into something you weren't supposed to see.
Oh, yeah. Fantastic. Do we need to? I don't think we need. Do we need to go over Shelley Duvall or Jack Nicholson's other credits? I mean, if you don't know who Jack Nicholson is, I don't know. I don't know what to do about whoever you are.
Yeah, I mean, you know, they've had, well, particularly he has had a long, illustrious career. She's done, she's done other things like Popeye.
Yeah, and Time Bandits.
Time Bandits, yes, wonderfully.
Yeah. And then she died just this year.
Yeah, very sad. And apparently she was like pretty much destitute and just a total mess. Yeah, it was really bad. I think they even had her on that fuckwad Dr. Phil's show where he was kind of like, giving her a hard time, like he likes to do for ratings. Oh, so what are you, crazy or something? Come on, tell me. What are you, crazy?
Jesus, why?
Yeah, because he's a fucking asshole.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why Oprah made that guy famous, honestly. Like, what are you doing, Oprah?
He's not even a doctor. That's what I love about him.
Yeah, he's just a perpetually bald man.
He's such a knob.
He's terrible. Oh, well, who should watch this movie, John? And what mood should they be in? What should they be bringing to the table to watch this movie?
I think people that are... Man, that's a good question, though. Because, if you're a horror fan, you have to assume that you've seen this. I have to assume that you've seen this if you're a horror fan. If maybe like people that are just getting into horror and they in their minds, it's like, oh, that's an old movie. Like when we were growing up, I didn't like to watch too many black and white movies because they just look so old and they look like old people movies, And so I imagine there's probably, like young people today that are into like, oh man, like Scream is the best movie ever made, bro.
Ugh. Damn.
And then you're like, well, you should check out The Shining. No, man, that's for old people. So people like that might benefit from seeing a movie like this. And I don't know. I mean, what do you think? What kind of crowd should watch this?
I'm gonna go after a different crowd. I agree with yours. Those people definitely need to watch it. I'm going to recommend a special kind of rewatch for the people who have already watched it. I'm gonna say, come into this movie and clear your mind of your preconceptions about this being a scary movie, and instead approach it like a comedy. Like, come to this movie ready to laugh. Come to this movie ready to enjoy the absurdities and pick up as many jokes as you can. Like, look for the jokes and just laugh your ass off if ever you have the opportunity, because I've got to say, this movie is funny as hell.
It does have a very sick thread of humor that runs through the whole damn thing.
Yeah, and it kind of hits. It's not really the same chord. It's not like what is it, Tusk? Because like Tusk did it the other way, but there are times where like the sense of humor of this movie almost gets in the way of the horrific elements. Like, it kind of left me with a flat note. But I think part of that is I had the benefit of watching Jack Nicholson movies and things before having seen this. Like, the first time I caught whiff of this movie was when I saw the movie Twister, and they're watching this movie on an outdoor theater. And like, I'd already seen Jack Nicholson by then. And so all of the scenes where Jack Nicholson is supposed to be scary, to me, are hilarious, because he's just being funny Jack Nicholson, like with his smile and his stupid eyebrows and his like very dramatic hairline. And so like, he's like, here's Johnny, and I'm just like cracking up laughing because Jack Nicholson is being silly on the TV screen.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much that. I mean, even when he dies, that shot of him at the end is hilarious. I mean, it's supposed to be scary, I guess, but I think it's also supposed to be comical.
Yeah, because he's just got this like ding face, and he's blue.
It's so great. Yeah, he is really. I know that was one of King's problems was, and apparently he's come around with the movie. He recognizes it as a standalone film, as a piece of art of its own, that is separate from the book that he wrote, which it very much is. But one of the things that he had a problem with was that he felt, in the book there's an arc to the character, a really long one, and in the movie there really isn't one. I mean, the guy's pretty much a fucking loon from the start of the movie. He just needs to have, grease the wheel a little bit, and then it's like, he's right over the top. It doesn't take much pushing, and then he's balls out insane for like 90% of the film. I mean, that I agree with. I thought that, like, you don't like him from the beginning of the movie. He's, and his wife is played as such a kind of wuss, and then Danny is, weird. So it's like, you don't have anybody to cling to in this movie. There's, you're just kind of, you really are just an observer, like, it's not, this movie is not emotionally compelling at all. It's strictly like a psychological exercise in which case it's probably more of a thriller than a horror film, I guess, but it does have supernatural elements, and it's
a weirdie. Like, what are you gonna, like, how do you like really categorize it? Yeah, it's in a place all on its own, and it's special for it. But yeah, it's one. All right, so I have a 237 word summary ready for the film.
Nicely done.
Thank you. I spent time doing it.
I was gonna say. That's all.
So I'm gonna go through that as quick as I can, and then let's just like dive into the scenes that make us happiest or angriest or whatever we want to like really pinpoint in on.
Cool.
All right. Deep in the Rockies, Jack, his wife Wendy, and their son Danny are going to caretake the Overlook Hotel during its winter off-season. A previous caretaker, Delbert Grady, killed his wife, 2 daughters, and himself. This doesn't bother recovering child abuser Jack. Danny's friend Tony lives in his finger, mouth, and tongue, and sometimes gives Danny visions and seizures. Before leaving, Dick explains to Danny that they both have Stephen King magic and that the ghosts can't hurt him but stay out of room 237. Danny encounters creepy twin girl ghosts and a wave of blood gushing from the elevator. A snowstorm isolates them from civilization. Danny ends up covered in bruises, the source of which becomes a point of contention. Jack encounters a naked woman who turns into a rotting old lady ghost, Lloyd, the helpful bartender ghost, and the ghost of Delbert Grady, who convinces him to kill his family. Jack threatens Wendy. She bonks him on the head. Jack starts axing his way through the doors his family is hiding behind, and then the Shine-summoned Dick shows up and gets axed. Wendy encounters a furry blowjob, split head guy, and a party full of motionless skeleton ghosts from the 1920s. Danny outsmarts Jack in the icy hedge maze. Jack freezes to death while Wendy and Danny get away. In a photo of a party at the Outlook in 1921, Jack is surrounded by friends.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. It leaves quite a bit out.
A wee.
A wee.
But that's good. That's a good summary.
Thank you. I definitely had seen this movie before this past 2 weeks. I didn't know whether or not I had because I felt like I couldn't remember it. But then going through and watching it, I was like, oh yes, I've seen all of these scenes in order. But there's so much weird little bits to it that it's hard to cling to some of them, I guess, in my memory. Every time I see the weird Pat Sajak looking motherfucker that runs the hotel, I'm always like, whoa, who the fuck is that guy?
The guy that's giving him the tour?
Yeah, he's giving him the tour and telling him, oh, and by the way, one of your predecessors murdered his family and himself. Yes.
No biggie.
No big deal. You're the kind of guy that can deal with this, right?
Yeah, it's fine. You'll be locked in here. What was the deal? You used to be a teacher, but you lost your job because you beat one of the students? Oh, you'll be fine here.
You'll be fine. Oh, yeah, recovering alcoholic? There's no alcohol here.
Not a problem. Possible child abuser? Not a big deal.
Hey, none of my business, am I right, guy?
Well, enjoy the winter.
I like all of the weird nonsense with it, and how we have this whole haunted hotel story going on, but that's all kind of taking place in the background. And it's in this movie, it's not really about a family suffering at the hands of ghosts at a haunted hotel. It's a family bringing their own trauma baggage with them to a haunted hotel and it getting worse there. And so these ghosts are basically just witnessing alcoholism and the impulses of abuse taking its toll on a vulnerable family. It's quite a thing.
Yeah.
Stanley Kubrick, I think, has had some problems.
I mean, it's a really strange film when you try to pin it down. I mean, it helps if you read the book, if you really want to kind of understand where these ideas are coming from. I personally hated the book, so I can't really recommend it as far as being a piece of art, but it certainly clears up a lot and explains a lot of what, the book is really about King's alcoholism. And then he, apparently heard the John Lennon song where he sings "We All Shine On," and apparently that's where he got the title. But it's okay, and then put all that Kingy stuff about families and children and all the stuff that King likes to write about all the fucking time.
Oh yeah,
yeah, and then all that crap about the hedge animals that attack and the boiler room that 1,000 pages of Jack trying to keep the boiler from going over. It's just, it never fucking ends. It just goes on and on. I hate that book. I really do. But it explains, where Kubrick got some of these ideas because, most people who see this film probably didn't read the book, I'm guessing. A lot probably did,
yeah.
But this film had a lot of popular success. It was a box office hit. Obviously, most of the popular audience is not going to rush out and grab a 1,300-page book to read because of this movie.
Jesus.
Or whatever it was. It was super long. So, if you go into this movie cold and just accept it as what it is, it's fucking weird. I mean, this weird family goes to Colorado and immediately gets locked up in this gigantic, creepy hotel none of these people seem particularly trustworthy. And then, 5 minutes in, and the dad is like half off his fucking rocker, and it just goes downhill. Like, it's never good. It's never like, oh, this loving family falls apart when they get into this haunted hotel. It's like, no, they're a fucking nightmare before they even get there.
Yeah.
It's like, and he's like promising her in the car that everything's going to be great or whatever. And it's just like, no, it's so clearly not going to be. You are a horrible person. We can already tell.
Yeah. Yeah, they're in that Volkswagen, and like we all know, like, oh, they are heading towards their own destruction. This is not okay, because even with his promises, like, he's already like, the whole thing is him like slowly losing patience with them and like building resentment. Like, it's their fault that he can't write. Like, he's just so angry with having to have a family. And you already get that in the car ride there, where like she says anything and he's just like, ugh.
That guy's he's a time bomb. I mean, he's, obviously it's, well, I don't know if it's obvious, but to me, you could certainly make the argument that it's one of those stories where, a lot of this shit is supposed to be a metaphor for the fact that he's just off his fucking rocker because he's isolated and has no touch with reality, basically, and he starts drinking again, and his worst but I mean, at the same time, part of that may also be because the supernatural elements of this film are so surreal that there's a thin line of logic that runs through it. There's this haunted hotel, and it makes weak people do terrible things or something like that. I don't, but a lot of that shit is really just, I mean, like, why is some guy getting blown by a dude in a dog costume? It doesn't, it's a cool image, but why? What does it mean? It doesn't seem to mean anything. It could have been anything that just happened to be that. And it's iconic just because it's weird, but I mean, he's not even really being blown. His pants are on. Like, what? It's just some dog with his head in his crotch. I just like, like, okay, sure. And why identical twins? Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything. It's not like two is two sides of something or whatever of the same thing, no, there really is none of that, unless he's talking about, because they're identical twins. They're the same thing twice. It's like, it doesn't have any meaning.
Well, you see, John, mirror images are very important to this film.
Well, that's true. God damn it.
Yeah.
That's true.
That's why a guy in a dog costume is snuffling in the crotch of a dude with his pants on, while the guy in the dog costume has the butt flap down.
That's right.
With his ass just hanging out as far away from other dude as possible.
You see, he's got both identical twin cheeks sticking out of his ass flap, and he's brought his head down by the other guy's identical twin balls.
Yes, exactly. You see, you're getting the reflective synchronicity now.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, which brings us to the topic of the Room 237 doc, and there's a whole subculture of losers who
Thank God!
who think that every fucking facet of anyone's guess as to what's happening at any moment in this film is some secret conspiracy. It's like Stanley Kubrick is like some sort of god who, literally planned and orchestrated every single frame of the film or something to like, oh, well, this is a Native American theme because it's on a Native American burial ground, and therefore the ghosts and the spirit. It's like, dude, shut the fuck up. Just watch the movie. Jesus Christ. It's like the SNL sketch with William Shatner where he goes to a convention, a Trekkie convention, and he goes to give a speech, and all these people are in the audience dressed up in their like cheesy like they've got like guys dressed like Spock or whatever. And he's talking to them, and they're all hanging on every word. And he goes, really, I've got to say, honestly, get a life. And they all looked so crestfallen. They're just like, they're so upset. And he's just like, I mean, really? What is wrong with you people?
That's amazing. Yeah, I watched Room 237 for the first time just this last week because I was like, well, if I'm going to talk about The Shining, I should probably have seen this documentary. And, like, I saw that it was, like, certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, which has just become the worst platform ever. And so I was, like, going into it, I was like, all right, so this is going to be a documentary that, like, really picks apart all of the cool nuances of the movie, and I'm going to learn a lot. And then I came away from that documentary and I was just like, what the fuck did I just watch? There's a guy in there who thinks that the government is after him because he thinks that Stanley Kubrick filmed the moon landing? Like, what the fuck are we doing here? Why was that documentary certified fresh? I'm bored.
Yeah, one of the big clues was that Danny was wearing a fucking Apollo 11 sweater or whatever. It's like,
oh my god.
Come on, man. Jesus Christ. Or the number 42 pops up several times. Never mind the fact that number has no relevance to anything.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, okay, yeah. Did you notice how the number 42 is, like, pops up in the film? No. Well, it does. You know why? No. I don't either, but it's really important. Get the fuck out of here. Yeah. I mean, it's sad when you see stuff like that because people are just, there's so many people out there that are just, like, desperately looking for something to hang on to. And this is one of those things, it's like 9/11 dorks and, Kennedy freaks and, all the political conspiracy, QAnon, Pizzagate. And then you can just throw in the 237 clowns who,
man.
like, well, you see, when he goes into this door, when you look to the right of the door, there's a window. But when he walks into the room, there's no window. It's like, he did that on purpose to make you feel uncomfortable. It's like, no, he didn't. It's just a scene. If you analyze every movie you watch that closely, you're going to find that kind of shit all the time.
And then there was the scene with the transition where the painting's black nipples transition onto the shine of Jack Nicholson's hairline, and that is a representation of The Shining also being part of Jack Torrance's character.
Oh my god. I think there can be a decent argument to be made that some of that stuff in the movie he did on purpose, because there's
sure.
Because, otherwise they were really, really huge editing errors that nobody caught. Like, there's a scene where he's sitting at the typewriter and she walks up and he's typing, all work, no play, make Jack a dull boy or whatever. And, there's like the wall behind him and there's these two kind of pillars and there's a chair right behind him. There's a pillar with a chair, and they keep going back and forth between her point of view and his point of view. Whenever you see her point of view, sometimes the chair's there, sometimes the chair's not. That's a pretty glaring one. But then at the same time, it's like, well, why? I mean,
yeah,
okay, but who gives a fuck? So the chair's not there. So what? I mean, it doesn't, it's not scary.
Yeah. I mean, I do think that Stanley Kubrick was probably like what we would now call an Easter egg nerd,
Yeah.
like he liked hiding shit in his movies, and that's fine. There's a perfectly valid niche for that in cinema, where like you throw all kinds of cool stuff in there for the people that are really into it. That's great. But I think also people are looking, like, that one seems like maybe that was an editing error more than anything else. Also, the overhead shots of the Overlook, there's no hedge maze. It's just not there.
Yeah, are we supposed to, what are we supposed to do? Like, he did it on purpose? He did it on purpose to make you feel unbalanced or whatever. Like, when Danny's sitting on the rug and the ball rolls towards him or whatever, the print is going one way, and then when it changes camera views or whatever, the print is now the other way. It's like, yeah, well, maybe they shot that I mean, who knows? He could have just shot it at 2 different places or 2 different times, or they moved over one print pattern and it was going the other direction since they alternated, you know, and then they forgot which was which and they just put both in the movie. Who knows? Because if they did do it on purpose, why did they do it? It doesn't fucking make any difference. They're like, well, yes, it does. You have to understand it. In the first one, the line points away, the purple line that he's sitting on points away from the spot he's sitting on. So, and then the next shot, he's closed in by the orange so that he can't get out. He's boxed in. It's like, yeah, he can. He's on a fucking rug. Calm down.
Oh, yeah.
I love the idea of things like, you know, all these subtexts and stuff like that. I think there's a way that kind of stuff can be done really effectively, you know, where you really can start to dig below the surface and find stuff that was intentionally there. And I have no doubt that there's some of that in this movie. Kubrick was smart enough not to, you know, divulge everything he thought about while he was making this movie. So, and he probably liked the idea that people were thinking that kind of shit because it, you know, kept them interested in his story. But generally speaking, I'm pretty straightforward with movie narratives. So, like, you know, like my interpretation of the film is pretty straightforward in the sense that I think that the place really is haunted. You know, this guy really was susceptible to, you know, to this place. I think the place was after his son, but and it was going to try to go through the father to get to the son, but then, you know, and so that's what it did. I mean, it basically, you know, manipulated the dad into. So, like, when he goes into the bar and he's drinking, I think, you know, as far as I'm concerned, I'm okay with the fact that a ghost handed him a glass of scotch or whatever, even though it doesn't make any sense, you know, and it you know, logically, the entire film doesn't make any sense.
True.
So, I mean, you know, it's like a suspension of disbelief kind of thing for me. Like, I accept it for what it is. To me, it's an art film anyway. So, you know, the rules as far as what is acceptable and what isn't go right out the window. And then it's up to the movie, you know, I mean, or it's up to me to decide whether or not I like the movie. In this case, I do. So I'm forgiving. If I didn't like this movie, I mean, I would probably just be like scathing about it because it would be a very easy film to pick apart. I mean, because the logic and the visual logic and the symbolic logic is all fucked up. It's like, it's a real mess.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, my interpretation is pretty linear. I mean, it's as best as it can be with a movie like this. It's such a cultural, you know, it's like The Exorcist. It's such a massive cultural explosion and it has such a pivotal role in American genre film that it's almost impossible to really describe the importance of a film like this because it's so relevant to so many other things in ways that, you know, are just ridiculous. I mean, it's like Citizen Kane. Like you watch Citizen Kane and it has this gigantic, like, gargantuan effect on movies, you know, from that point forward. But it's not like every movie you see Citizen Kane in it. But when you watch Citizen Kane, you think, oh wow, like basically movies just completely changed because of this film. And then, you know, like, it defined modern cinema almost. And then a movie like this, it didn't define modern cinema or anything, but it definitely, you know, holds this like stellar place in American culture, popular culture. And so for me, it's like impossible to really truly analyze it because all the analysis that I see or read or whatever, all of it is unsatisfying to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I always go back to the film, you know, like, none of it really enhances my enjoyment of the film. When I go back and watch the film, I just appreciate it for what it is. And I have issues with it. I mean, I do have issues, obviously, with the logic of it and you know, what we talked about as far as the way it was made and, you know, stuff like that. some of the effects are, like the whole snowy maze scene looks cartoonishly terrible. But it's kind of cool because of that. But I don't think that wasn't the intention, I don't think. And then, like you said, like, it's almost like it's funny, but it is trying to be funny at times, but I think other times it's not. And like, when he's chopping that door down, I think part of the reason why that's so iconic is because it's like a cartoon. I mean, it's so over the top, and his performance is ludicrous. It's just like,
yeah.
It's like, why is he acting like this? He acts so strange that everybody just assumes that's how he is in real life. Like, he just walks around acting that way all the time. And, I mean, for all I know, he does. It's such a caricature. It's hard to take seriously. And when you hear people say it, this is the scariest film ever made, I'm like, even when I saw this as a young person, I don't remember how old I was, it didn't really scare me even then. And I got scared by like $6 Million Man Bigfoot episode. Like, it wasn't that hard to scare me as a kid.
Whoa.
That costume still freaks me out too. I see it and I'm like, ugh.
We can find Bigfoot. We have the technology.
It's so creepy. That and that fucking Gargoyles made for TV movie. Oh my god, that movie ruined me.
Oh, nice.
I still see those pictures and I'm like, ugh. I'm an idiot.
Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. Yeah, because they're like you're saying, like that. It's like that scene with him chopping it down. Like he's saying the like little pigs, let me come in. And you're talking about it being cartoonish. It's got to be at least partially cartoonish because cartoons play such a big role in the movie. Like, Danny's always watching cartoons. Yeah. He's watching, like, Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote. He's watching Woody Woodpecker. Like, I saw someone even mention that him going back over his tracks in the hedge maze being, like, a cartoon trope. And then, the little pigs thing, like, it's gotta be cartoonish. And then her in the corner with the knife, just like the most flimsy that a human can possibly be. Like, she can't do doors. She like, when the door doesn't work, she tries to hit the doorknob with a knife. And like earlier when she was trying to lock him in the cupboard, she was just struggling with the door handle, but it was like, we could all see the lock. It was just a little pin that you have to pull out, but it like took her forever. Like, it's all like cartoonish. It certainly doesn't hurt that this same year, her role as Olive Oil came out in cinemas. Like, it's just all... a lot of it is a bit silly, but then it's mixed in with these things like the elevator door, like, spilling forth with blood, and Danny being invited to play forever by the twin girls while having that overlaid with him getting psychic visions of their bodies being chopped up in the hallway. It's like, it's alarming, but it's, I don't know how to like categorize it in my own brain, like, because it's all over the place. And I'm like, well, wait, was that ineffective? Like, did that mix of tone actually like reduce my enjoyment of it, or did it just make it like a more complex relationship that I have with the film? And I don't know. It's a rough one, but it's great. We haven't mentioned it, but I just want to, like, everyone here listening to this probably knows, the camera work, the set design, it's phenomenal. Oh, yeah. Every shot is filmed magnificently, and it is, like, just looking at what's happening on the screen is always impressive.
Isn't this the movie where they, or was it 2001, where they basically had to invent the Steadicam in order to get the kind of shots they wanted, like the running shots and stuff?
Oh God, I don't know. I know. It could be this. I did see that. Yeah, like the guy who invented the Steadicam ended up like making a documentary about Stanley Kubrick or something like that.
Yeah. I think it was this movie, because I mean they notoriously use it for the running scenes, where he's like through the maze and through the hotel.
Yeah.
So,
well, even just like following Danny around in that fucking little bicycle whenever he's like, oh, I hate the sound it makes so much. I want to kill that kid with an axe. But like even like following him around like that took some care. I hadn't even like thought about that, but yeah, like you had to rig up some stuff.
yeah, I mean the as far as like the technology or the technical element of filmmaking, yeah, this film is top notch. I mean, the camera work is just ridiculous, and his eye for composition and depth of field and stuff like that, it's fantastic. I mean, he's definitely a visionary when it comes to stuff like that.
Yeah,
but I mean, the scene where, oh god, what's one of the scenes with Scatman Carruthers? Oh, it's when he's sitting with Danny at the table in the kitchen area. That scene, they shot that scene 143 times. It's in the Guinness Book of World Records for the most takes in a single scene. I mean, it's just a little bit of interaction. It's important, and it's important to nail the feel and and they do, but I'm pretty sure they probably nailed it somewhere before 143 takes too. I mean, that's just abusive. There's no, that's like something's wrong with this guy,
Yeah. Yeah, no, and he did that a lot. He did that with her with the baseball bat scene. He made them retake that so many times that she started like bleeding from her hands from holding the baseball bat and swinging it so much.
That's insane.
The scene where Jack is breaking through the door and she's like flimsy on the other side, that was 12 hours of filming just that scene, to the point that she even talked about it. She was like, whenever I went back to my trailer, I was in like a weird state of bliss because I had spent 12 hours crying and screaming nonstop.
Jesus Christ. I mean, that would ruin anybody. It's insane. Yeah. Plus, she's in real life, she's a woman, and she's, in the 70s, she's a woman, late 70s, where women are very much, not taken as seriously as men. I mean, obviously, everybody's like, looks at Jack Nicholson like he's some sort of god, and then they just see her, she's just, Mrs. Torrance, like that. She's just a foil for him, and like it's perfectly acceptable for everybody to treat her bad and do all this stuff. I mean, it's disgusting, really, when you think about it. I mean, it's, look at the impact that it had on her. I mean, how else is she supposed to see herself going into that? Like, it's like being at war, basically. It's like her against everybody. And you really feel that in her performance. If anything, that's the scariest part of the movie is putting yourself in her shoes, not just her character, but even her as a human. It's that kind of shit. Yeah. It's scary because, I mean, can you imagine doing one of those scenes, like that scene, for 12 hours and feeling like if you make any mistakes, he's going to get mad and embarrass you, and you're going to have to do it 1,000 more times? It just, the pressure, that's just insane. I mean, I can't believe she didn't quit, to be honest.
Also, he was controlling their diet. He was like only letting them eat like not enjoyable food so that they would be like at their worst. So like on top of that, she had like a cheese sandwich for lunch that day. And it's just like fuck all of that guy. I would quit. Yeah. Get someone else to be in this crap movie.
Yeah. He'd be like, you're going to have to stand when you eat that sandwich. You can't sit down.
Yeah. Jesus.
He makes Hitchcock look like a nice guy.
Oh, wow. Whoa. And I like that he still, like, I mean, it was 1980. People didn't know Stephen King tropes, but, like, this movie still has a kid with special needs and magical powers, and to go along with that, he has a magical Negro with magic powers, and they team up. It's like the ultimate cross-section of Stephen King bullshittery right there.
Magical Negro.
It's just so
you're
not good.
You're not wrong. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that I really appreciated about the movie Doctor Sleep is then we also get like a fucking mind palace type situation going on in there. And I was like, oh, yep, here we go. We've got all Stephen Kingdom coming together in one spot.
It's the unifying film. It's the Stephen King singularity.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Well, so so you had said, last week, I think last episode, that we were something along the lines of, was it a masterpiece or was it a total piece of shit? And we're going to find out, or something like that. And I think you basically had said that you're generally speaking, you did not grow up thinking this was like a great movie. Like, it was not one of your favorites, right? How do you feel about it now?
I feel more favorably about it now than I did before. It's a rough one. It's one that I'm going to have a relationship with this movie for the rest of my life that's going to change, just like any good piece of art. It is a good piece of art. It's a very complicated piece of art. There are long segments of the movie that are boring to me, and there are the parts of it that I grew up knowing about, like, because that's the thing. Anyone that hasn't seen this movie already knows this movie. Like, there are scenes that are iconic. The two girls in the hallway, the elevator. Here's Johnny. Like, everyone knows these things, and so part of it was I came at this movie thinking that it was the scariest movie of all time, and it's just not. There are these great iconic images that are deservedly iconic and like exquisitely executed, but overall it's almost not a horror movie in some ways. Like, there are things that are supposed to be like disturbing and like deeply unsettling, like the blowjob with the non-blowjob with the furry, or like with hi Johnny, like he's just talking to his fucking finger, and I can't watch that and not crack up. Like,
yeah, I know, it's crazy.
So yeah, I do think it's a masterpiece. I think it's pivotal. Like, we wouldn't have Twin Peaks if not for this movie. Like, you can't look at like what Lynch's career trajectory took after watching this movie and not like see the influence. And that's just like one guy. Like, it's everywhere. Like, this movie was pivotal to cinema after it. And so like for that it's great, but like I don't know that I could watch this movie as many times as you have and like keep enjoying it. Like,
right.
There are parts of it that just break the spell for me. I would probably end up skipping the middle hour of it sometimes just to like get through. But I mean, it's great. I like the story it tells. It pairs well when you actually like know the story. Like, if like I also, so all right, so this past week I also watched Room 237. I rewatched Doctor Sleep, having just freshly watched this one and having context, and I rewatched the Mick Garrick miniseries version of this.
Oh, you poor man.
So I've been in The Shining, my guy.
Whew. Wow.
Yeah.
That's commitment.
Yeah. It's got that horrible little kid who just can't close his mouth. He just always has that square open mouth thing going on.
I hate that kid.
Terrible. Yeah, he's terrible. Cortland Mead, get out of here.
That series is fucking terrible.
It really is, but it does like shine a light on things. If you haven't read the book, you get a little bit more context.
Oh, it's much more faithful to the book. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know that it was worth the context, But yeah, I mean, like this movie is great. There are parts of it that are, have stuck with me since I first saw it in the movie Twister, and there are other parts that I appreciate, and I'm definitely gonna watch this movie again and come back and like analyze little bits. So yeah, it's a masterpiece. It's not my favorite. I wouldn't crack it in my top 10, but yeah, it's pretty great, and it's a heavy recommend.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's yeah. I was thinking about when you were talking something that this kind of made me think about this. I forget what you said, but yeah, it is a horror film, but it's a Stanley Kubrick horror film, which means that it's first and foremost a Stanley Kubrick film, and
Yeah.
I think he's known for taking novels and turning them into his own project. But I think more than anything, he's known for taking other people's ideas and just Kubricking them. And that's because the guy's an auteur, as people say. I mean, he's what sets him apart from, just maybe a highly skilled, but more of like a technically skilled director is that, everything has Stanley Kubrick like stamped all over it, particularly from, certain point on in his career. Everything he made was like an event movie, basically. And it had him all over it. And, like usually it's misanthropic and cynical and, critical of characters, very cold emotionally. All these kinds of things that he brings to his films. They're intellectual, but they're not difficult to absorb. I mean, they're not like, like what the fuck was that? There's some of that.
Yeah.
But I mean, generally speaking, it's just a scary movie kind of thing. You could just see it as that and not have to see all the subtext or, but for like film dorks, there is all that Kubrickiness is in there too. So it's a horror film, obviously, but I don't think that's really even matters that much. It's just another way for Kubrick to like almost like get his misanthropic philosophy out into the world or something, because that's what he was notorious for, was basically hating everybody, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And, to be fair, as a Kubrick movie, this one fits because, like, I don't know that I've ever seen a Kubrick movie that didn't impress me, like just blow my mind away, but also have whole huge segments that I did not enjoy. Like the second half of Full Metal Jacket. I was like, why? Why did you give us an amazing movie and then just turn it into this? This is terrible. And also 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like the whole thing with like Hal, amazing. The whole thing with the fucking monkeys, get that shit out of here. I hate it.
Get that shit out of here. Oh my god. Ooh. It's funny if you watch, like, if you see The Killing and you find, like, I found myself trying really hard to figure out why this was Stanley Kubrick. Same thing with like Paths of Glory and did he make Spartacus too? He made Spartacus?
Yeah,
didn't he?
yeah.
Spartacus I saw, but I was like a kid, so it doesn't. I just saw an action movie. But
Yeah.
Paths of Glory and The Killing I watched knowing full well, that it was him and so on and so forth, and they're just not Kubrick-y at all. So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
Like if you watch some of the early Hitchcock movies, and I mean he made like a billion movies, but if you watch some of the more like significant of his earlier films, you can still kind of get, it's like, okay, I can kind of see the Hitchcock in this, but you don't really see the Kubrick so much in the early stuff. I mean, you would probably have to know him personally or really know his work to recognize, okay, this is a Kubrick thing. Because it's really just like The Killing's just a caper movie about a bunch of guys who rob a horse, horse race thing or something. I forget. Like they wear silly masks. I mean, it's a crime heist movie, and it's cool. It's got its own feel to it, but it doesn't. It's not like, the length of his nose matches with the, like it does. It's just a movie.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I haven't seen that one. I also haven't seen Lolita, but man, everything I read about Lolita, I'm like, what's happening? Why did this need to be a movie?
That's the one I have no interest really in seeing. I you know, I know it's the point of the movie is not supposed to be. It's okay for old men to fuck children, but that's all I see. Yeah. That's all I think when I think of Lolita. I'm sorry. It's just it's. I don't need to see it. I just don't.
I don't want to see the Pink Panther in that way.
Whoa.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. Anything else that you want to go over before we transition to future or other current and future things?
About that movie, about Shining, no, not
about
really.
The shindig.
The shingding.
Yeah,
I really like it. It's, to be perfectly honest, though, I think it is flawed.
Yeah.
I mean, all movies are in some way, obviously, but I don't think this film is it's like basically I'm trying to say I don't think this film is as great as I think it is. Like,
nice.
It just, there is something lacking in this film for me that particular, and if we're specifically talking about it as a Loathsome Thing horror film, it is definitely lacking because it's really not very scary to me. Like using a haunted hotel as a foil for child abuse and alcoholism is just kind of just doesn't work for me. I'm sorry. I understand it's important to Stephen King, and I get that and respect that, but doesn't really mean that much to me, and it didn't translate as scary in the book at all, and the movie, I don't really see it as scary either. I do love it, but it's not a very effective horror film, I guess. Maybe it is. It's just that it's so different from all the tropes. He had no interest in any of that shit, obviously, which is cool. You can't predict everything that's going to happen at all times like you can in most horror films. Like, oh, here's the part where she trips, and here's the part where whatever, to the point where they make movies, like I forget the name of the movie, but where they basically just satirize that whole thing, where they have like, it's the whole movie is that, like, you couldn't really throw The Shining in there because The Shining doesn't really have any movie tropes in it. I mean, not really. I mean, other than what? Crazy people?
I mean, the tropes it created too, like, and also like, I think it was subverting tropes and it was creating things that became tropes after it. That's why it's so hard to compare it to other movies. Like even just analyzing it objectively is hard because of how entrenched in the like cultural like conscious that movie is.
I was kind of like that's what I was saying.
Yeah, like it's like we've seen it satirized so much. We've seen it like in the way it's influenced things. So it's really hard to come at this from a way that's like genuinely, seriously objective. Like, and so I'm not. I'm just talking about the giggles and how this movie made two men using the N-word to each other as awkward as possible.
God, no kidding.
Like, it's like, wait, how did he pronounce it?
Oh, it's so painful. Yeah.
It's just dragged out, and they just keep saying it back and forth to each other.
He's like, and also. It's like, oh, God.
Oh, here we go.
There it is. Yeah.
What?
It did create. This film definitely created an infamous trope, the disabled escape vehicle trope, where like,
oh man,
or the disabled radio, like the last chance to get away trope was definitely hammered in this movie.
Oh yeah, it was great. Yeah, they did a great job on that, and I really do love all of the like questions that it leaves open, like the fact that. So Danny's neck is covered in bruises. We don't see that happen. we just see him like having complex Jack having complex feelings about it, and then he apparently tells Danny tells Wendy that it was a ghost that bruised his neck, but we also don't see that happen, and so it leaves these lingering questions in there about who's doing what, and like it does that open-ended element really, really well when it does it well. When it doesn't, it also moves past it at a brisk pace. Yeah, it's a fantastic movie, but like you said, it has flaws, and the behind the scenes element of it is just an atrocity.
It really is. It really is. It's I'm so glad it's out there. I mean, it's one of the reasons why I like movies so much. So, I have to pay my respects to it in that sense. I mean, it's flawed for sure, but it's definitely up there among my favorite movies, period, of any genre. So,
yeah,
whatever that's worth. Nothing.
Exquisite. Well, what about other things that weren't this movie, John? Since our last episode, has anything come up of note in your realm of doing?
I watched a few horror films. I saw Night Swim, which I would describe. I actually kind of liked it, which I mean, it's a terrible film, I guess, but it never meant to be anything other than just a kind of a very much a tropey, stylized kind of like I guess ghostish sort of thing. Like they have this pool that is basically spring fed, and these people buy this house, and horrible things had happened there in the past, and now weird shit's happening to them, and it's because there's something going on with the source of the water, basically, and it's
weird.
It's ridiculous and so on and so forth, but I actually kind of liked it. I thought it was, pretty entertaining, considering that it was, I expected to hate it, which I didn't. So that was cool. I very much expected to hate Immaculate with Sydney Sweeney, which came out on Hulu, which is basically almost the identical story to the first Omen, or whatever it's called, the Omen prequel with Lily Tiger Free that I had mentioned in a previous episode that I fucking hated, but everybody thinks is so good. I hated that movie. I fully expected this movie to be worse, and as much as I like Sydney Sweeney, she's kind of like Keanu Reeves for me. Like, she should not play a chaste young American woman who goes to a nunnery in Italy, because she sounds like Sydney Sweeney. She's like, yes, well, I just thought that it'd be, like, pretty fucking badass for me to be a nun, Like, it's just, she's so Sydney Sweeney, she can't get away from that. But the movie is so fucking ludicrous, and my son really nailed it. He said, she reminds me of Mia Goth, and I was like, she is. She's like the popular version of Mia Goth. She is so balls out in that movie. Like, she goes for it, and it totally makes that movie entertaining, because it's a terrible idea, but she makes it entertaining. It's great. And so I have to recommend it. It was ridiculous. And then I saw this more of a thriller on I think it was on Shudder, Somewhere Quiet it was called, about a husband, and I think it was a husband and wife, and the wife had been kidnapped in the past and was super traumatized, so they go out to his family's, it's like summer home out in the country or whatever, and all kinds of weird shit starts happening. It was okay. It was very much a character-driven indie. But yeah, those were the ones that I watched. How about you? Did you see any good stuff, bad stuff?
I highly recommend Dr. Sleep. It's not great, but I mean, you've got your Ewan McGregor's, and you've got a cool continuation of the story. The coolest thing in that movie is
Rebecca Stevenson.
yes, but also the fact that we get Red Rum showing up as like maybe like how it tied into it, where like it was like a psychic emanation from the future that was showing up in the past. Like, I thought that was really fucking neat.
Mhm.
I was like, oh, okay, yeah, this just made this whole movie worth it.
Mhm. I have a feeling that this would be a case where I probably would like the book more than the movie, because it Stephen King puts so much in some of his books, and he obviously put a shit ton of stuff in this book, because even the movie is like this convoluted, to be honest.
Oh yeah. It's like, it's 10 years later.
I mean,
okay,
just
fine.
just replicating the whole, Overlook situation was pretty awesome. I mean, they nailed it. That was freaky.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's Mike Flanagan.
Yeah.
He's a big old Stephen King nerd, so he was trying to do good by it. I thought he did a great job on it, but
Yeah.
I mean it's also a Stephen King thing, so it means it kind of sucks.
Oh yeah, I'm also watching The Fall of the House of Usher, by the way.
Oh man, have you gotten through the scene at the rave?
Oh yes, so good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm like 4 or 5
man.
episodes in, so I'm trying to remember who died last. I think the silver-haired one got ripped to shreds by the monkey. I think that was the last murder that I saw. I don't know. It's really good. It's getting starting to get closer to the end now, I think. But it's so far, I really like it.
I enjoyed it. At times I was like, we're gonna do this. We're gonna go one at a time, just like in his other shows.
Yeah.
All right, I guess that's fine. But love me a good Luke Skywalker hanging out in there as a badass.
He's great, and I like Bruce Greenwood a lot. But anyways, I'm sorry. What else have you seen?
Oh, so yeah, it's just the ones that I talked about, the miniseries and Room 237.
Mhm.
I didn't really have a lot of time to watch anything other than those and The Shining. But there is a cinema experience coming to theaters that I'm very excited about, that I wanted to share, and that is a group called Silence Synced is going to be running a re-release of the original Nosferatu, where they've replaced, like, instead of a classic movie soundtrack, the soundtrack is going to be Kid A and Amnesiac by Radiohead.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Like, if they just sync it up somehow, or they just straight sync it up, I guess. Well, that's crazy.
Yeah. The name of the group is Silent Synced. They're doing a bunch of they're going to be releasing one like every 4 months. I think the next one is REM and a Buster Keaton movie.
Oh, that's a nice pairing. Wow. That's a cool idea. I would check something like that out.
Yeah. So that's gonna start, and it's all just like going to like indie theaters. It's not like hitting Cinemark or anything like that.
Yeah.
It starts in October. The only one that I saw in Houston was at the Royal Oaks Theater in like December 18th.
Okay.
So if you want to see that in Houston, pile up into the freshly reopened that place.
I saw that the Houston Horror Film Festival is doing some sort of pop-up event at the Wildcatter Saloon in Katy. It's like an outdoor venue where they do all kinds of. They have like the Brazilian festival every year out there, but it looks pretty interesting. They're actually going to have like authors and stuff like that. I always mean to go to the film festival. It's right here at the fucking Marriott, right down the street. But the first couple of years it was kind of like, but then the guests this last time were actually pretty good. So now it's getting to where it's like a pretty worthwhile event. So, man, anyways.
Nice.
Whatever.
Yeah, maybe we need to plan to go to that next time through. Like, maybe we print business cards.
Oh, shit.
Loathsome Things, listen to us or die.
we just wear hidden microphones and harass celebrities.
Hey, what do you think of The Shining?
Hey, you were so good in Buffy. I wasn't in Buffy. Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I meant the other guy.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So that's what we've been up to, fans. Fans are fans.
Yeah.
John, what can said fans look forward to when next they listen to an episode of ours?
I've been binging my way through a bunch of horror audiobooks by the author Josh Mallerman, the guy that wrote Bird Box. And the movie, I thought the movie was okay. And I wasn't really interested in the book, but I had read some stuff about him somewhere, and actually I liked what I had read, and so I said, I'm going to go ahead and listen to Bird Box. So I did, and I loved it. And so I've been burning through all his books. For the most part, I really like them. One of the things I really like about him is he's very imaginative. Like each book has a really like unique storyline to it. And he's from Michigan. All of his stories take place, including Bird Box, in Michigan. But anyways, he apparently got into movie producing, and he had a big part in making this little indie film based on a novel by a Texas horror author named Max Booth III. He's from San Antonio. He has a horror bookstore there as well. He has his own publishing imprint. But anyways, they made a little tiny indie during COVID that cost next to nothing. It was called We Need to Do Something. It was from 2021. The director is Sean King O'Grady. It's about a family that gets trapped in basically like 2 rooms of their house after a bad storm and tornado. And it may turn out that something apocalyptic is behind it, and perhaps evil, and that the daughter may have had some role in it, but it's about an incredibly dysfunctional family. And it's really funny, but like ridiculous. And it's a cool little movie. And I thought, that was one I had thought about doing for a while. And then reading these Josh Malerman books just kind of brought me back to it. And I thought, hey, you know what? We need to do something with We Need to Do Something. I'm a moron.
Nice.
I'm stupid.
Yeah, and I think that one's out there on the like free streaming services too, because I know I've seen it pop up. I don't think I've watched it, but I've been meaning to for a long time. So this is a great excuse to. Plus, I love little indie movies.
I know. That was the other thing. I thought, well, you just picked a banger, like a classic banger, and I thought, well, I'll go to. My last one was something pretty small too, so I'll probably have to, pick some big movie next or something. But yeah, this, why not? Let's do this one. It'll be
Let's do it.
It'll be fun to talk about.
I think so. Nice. And also we've got Halloween season coming around the bend, so we've got October and September and October movies coming up. So there's a lot of opportunities for new movies in our future, so that's exciting.
That's true. There are a couple I kind of have in mind, so we'll see. For my next,
nice.
I guess we'll be dipping into that period then.
Month whence, yes.
Whoa.
Just like a cowboy riding a bomb.
That's right. Dr. Strange Lord. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah. So listen up 2 weeks from today, unless you're not listening to this the day it came out. 2 weeks from the day this came out. And we'll be talking about We Need to Do Something. And you got anything else, Josh, before we go?
Nope.
I'm sorry.
You have to die.
Oh my God.